on Facebook and on YouTube live. We are in the WKYC studios. Danielle Wiggins usually does this update for you in the morning, but she has the day off. So I'm Maureen Kyle along with Jasmine Monroe and Dave Chudowski, and we are going to be handling our Facebook Live chat. As a reminder, you can be interactive with us. You can leave your name, where you are chatting from in the comments section, and you can interact with us on these stories. I have to apologize. Usually Danielle has a computer here. She's able to read your comments. I am not as equipped as Danielle as the fill-in. I just don't have all of the setup. So make sure you comment. We will get to your comments throughout the day. But we do have a really big news morning happening. It's just been a really busy news week in general. Make sure you're staying tuned to not only WKYC, but the Today Show for all the updates on that mass shooting in Indianapolis. We learned overnight that 8 people were shot and killed inside a FedEx facility. Those details are developing, as well as details about coronavirus vaccine, especially with Pfizer vaccine. You might need to get a 3rd dose as a booster. That's all developing as we go throughout the day. But one of our big stories that we covered this morning, Jasmine, you did such a great job with this. I cannot believe it has been 4 years since that Easter Sunday shooting that unfolded all on Facebook Live. We all remember it because it really, it got a lot of worldwide attention, really. Yeah. And it made Facebook take a look at their policies and how they were allowing Facebook Live to happen. Steve Stevens, right. He was doing a Facebook Live talking about how he was going to find somebody to kill. And then he came upon Robert Godwin Sr. and killed him live on Facebook. But you got a chance to talk to his daughter about how her life has changed since those moments.
So she's 1 of 10. Robert Godwin had 10 beautiful children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. It's never easy dealing with grief, but what Tanya described to me was it was a lot harder for them because he was taken from them. You know, when you know that grandma's getting sick and, you know, they're having complications and the doctor's saying, you know, the days are getting shorter, you can prepare yourself. But when someone's actually taken from you, gone too soon, you see that a lot. But when someone's actually taken from you, she says it's a lot harder to deal with grief because you don't know who to blame. You don't know, you know, what to move to next. Tanya says she went through a whirlwind of emotions after that 4 years ago today, which was Easter. You know, typically people say, do you think about it on Easter? She says, I think about it every day. He was my father. It wasn't just Easter Sunday to us. This was a man in our life who was present all times. Thanksgiving, she said, was the last day that they were all together and had this big, great Thanksgiving dinner at her house. This is pre-pandemic, need I remind you guys. And just, you know, walking her life down. She said she turned to alcohol. She said she gave up on her faith. She said she really just lost herself in that first year after losing her father. She said, but you know, something just clicked. She went to church, a church in Cleveland, and it just got her right back to her foundation, to what her father taught her growing up. You know, you can't get through this without God. So that's how she came up with this book. It's called From Grief to Grace. And it's pretty much just about her journey. She says it gets really descriptive. She talks about the video. She said it took her about 3 years to write the book because she said being that it was so descriptive, it's hard to watch the video. The reason why we didn't put the video on the news today, you know, if you saw what happened, you knew how gruesome it was. Seeing that again, she says it's a trigger to her. It's a trigger to her family. It's a trigger to me. You know, watching that video, we have to go through a lot of things at the station. We see a lot. We hear 911 phone calls that never make it out. We try to block this stuff. That way we're not shocking families at home. This is a morning show. You know, the first thing you hear, you don't want to hear about death or shooting, but you know, we have to deliver the news that's fair and balanced. But, you know, they're resilient. Their family is totally resilient. She has one last voicemail that he left on her phone. She put it inside of a teddy bear. We got to thank Build-A-Bear. They're incredible because you could put those messages on there. And, you know, it's just heartfelt. She says this book definitely got her through this tough time. And just, if you're interested in buying that book, the link is on wkyc.com, and you can get that book and learn a lot more about their family and how they went from grief to grace.
Yeah, she's incredible. I mean, really, I don't think there's anybody in our area that doesn't think about that every once in a while. I mean, it was such a huge story. Dave, you were talking about how you were in the newsroom the day that happened.
Yeah,
It
no,
was a Sunday.
yeah, there's just moments in your life, and I have no personal attachment to this, but there's moments in your life that you never forget, right? And that's one of them. Jasmine, as you were telling that story this morning, I had instant flashback to sitting in the sports office on that Easter Sunday and just remembering, I just couldn't believe it. It's I can't believe it moment that just happened. I remember it affected me. There's just certain things, like the Kobe Bryant, when that happened, there's certain things where even if you don't know someone, it can still affect you personally. And I remember really being affected that day by that. And I'm really happy you shared that story this morning. I think, one thing you think about, you don't know how you would handle that situation when, something like that would happen to a loved one, but there is no way that you could do it on your own, recovery.
Yeah.
You need people's help. Yeah. And now she's going to help others. And, by sharing that story, Jasmine, that's going to help other people. Makes me think of my sister too. And, I lost my nephew. My sister lost her son when he was 20, and she'll never be the same. But what she's doing is she's helping other people right now. And I'm actually working on a story right now that I'm going to share with the Go viewers here in a few weeks about how she's helping other people. And I'm kind of getting sidetracked here, but I guess the bottom line is, people need the help, and the other last thing I want to say is, you mentioned that voicemail message. I actually have saved some voicemails on my phone from my parents. They're getting older. I mean, you never know when it's going to happen. So you have that, a lot of things just hit home for me there when you talked.
And those voicemails, because they're so long. My mom leaves these long, my grandma leaves. I just talked to my grandma yesterday. I mean, her voicemails are at least 3 minutes long. I'm like, you were talking to me pretty much,
Yeah. All right. Well, not to continue with the theme of grief here, but oh my gosh, I don't mean to be a downer on a Friday morning, but something that's really going to be interesting is the royal funeral that's happening tomorrow. Prince Philip, we know that it's his funeral. Tomorrow, we're going to be carrying it live on NBC and Channel 3, starting at 9:30 a.m. But we've been learning some new details this morning about what role Prince William and Prince Harry will be playing out. We've learned that they will be part of the procession. They will be following the coffin, which we know is going to be in an adapted Land Rover that Prince Philip designed himself, and that they are going to be escorting cousins. And we also know that now there is going to be a local tribute. The USS Cod is going to do a firing salute, because Prince Philip was part of the British Navy and fought alongside US allies in World War II. So a quick question to you guys before we wrap things up for the morning. I mean, are you interested in the royal funeral, watching this unfold in any way?
It's always weird. I don't want to say I'm not interested in it, but it's just, we got so wrapped up in the royal family, and now it's just really awkward, especially on the back of Meghan Markle's interview with Oprah, and people tying that into, her being rude and not going. But again, she's pregnant, I think. And, it's not a good time to travel. So it's just, I'll check out the updates, but to follow death, I think I'm good for today.
Yeah, I know it's been a rough week.
Yeah.
I had a lot of it this morning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting though, because these are moments in history, and really the last, that I can remember, the last major royal funeral that I can remember was Princess Diana's. And I don't even think, I was too young to really follow it or be that interested. But, the pomp and circumstance of it. We've seen the royal weddings over the past couple of years, and not to compare a wedding and a funeral, but I mean, you have to kind of think, it's who's going to be there. There's only 30 people allowed because of COVID-19 restrictions. Here's the frivolous part of it. And forgive me for even saying it out loud, but I know you've all thought about it. There's the fashion aspect of it. Everybody always watches the royals to see what they're going to be wearing because they always have the hats and the very elegant outfits. And then just the ceremony of it. I mean, this is, whether you're interested in the royals or not, this is a milestone in history. I mean, you think of how long Queen Elizabeth has been in power, therefore Prince Philip, a part of the royal landscape, and the figureheads of really, I mean, really Europe. I mean, they are just British royals, but then they have all the territories throughout the world. And he's been very involved in nations across the world. So people are going to be tuning in to see how his funeral is handled from a historic standpoint. And it's not just tabloid at that point. You can make it about tabloid and Meghan Markle and all that drama. But really, I mean, this is history books. If you ever go over to London and you go into the Tower of London and you get to see the royal, there's just rooms full of the royal armor and the crown jewels. I mean, that's not just a saying. You go into a room of the crown jewels. This is history being passed down throughout centuries. So I think it will be interesting. Dave, I know you tease us all the time that we are the royal watchers.
Well,
but it's the crown. The crown for me, it's just like, I think
I mean, no, that has really shined a light on their history, their life, how, especially Prince Philip, and how he had to deal with being in the shadow of his wife.
That's a great point, because that's, not as into it as you guys are. I mean, I followed a little bit, but the shadow aspect of it, that's exactly something I've thought about before. But one thing I was going to ask you, because I know you pay attention to it more, is how much is centered in, I mean, it's a funeral and he should be honored, but yet how much is centered on that compared to the tabloids? I just punched in Harry. That's all I wrote was Harry in Google. And right away, what comes up, Prince William and Prince Harry won't walk next to each other at Prince Philip's funeral. All eyes on Prince Harry and royal rift after his return to the UK. And I have to say, I was actually going to ask you how much is being talked about him returning there.
You think about your own small social circles that are happening at this point. And, I got a chance to actually see my uncle for the first time in over a year. And he was with my aunt and my mom, and conversation naturally went from, hey, this is interesting, to, hey, who do you think Meghan was talking about? I bet it was so-and-so. And I, you know what I mean? Like, this is part of our lives. You can't help, Dave, even if you're not following the royals, you can't get away from it.
I watched the Oprah interview. I watched it.
A lot of people watch the Oprah interview. And so I don't think they can be separated at this point. I think the tabloidy stuff is a part of history. It's the
royal life. And I think that's what he mentioned in that Oprah interview. It's not separate. People tend to think, oh, it's separate, but it's part of your life. And that's why they wanted them to control the storyline of Meghan and Harry. But, once the tabloids get a hold of it, some people believe the tabloids had something to do with Princess Diana, so it's just all intertwined. And,
and you brought up, Dave, that you type in Harry and it brings up the feud between brothers. And I think, like we were just talking about, things can affect you personally, even if you don't know the person or the family involved. And we all have siblings, or, you have a sibling. And I think the world has watched these brothers go through tragedy as young kids. And it's heartbreaking to think that will they really not walk next to each other? Is that really happening? Or is that a tabloid thing? Are they going to mourn their grandfather and patch things up? Is this all fabrication? Is it real? Was he part of the problem that Meghan was talking about? I think there's a lot of interest in that. And I think it's because Princess Diana is in the history books, and the royal life is in the history books. And this is part of history playing out. We have to go. Leave what you think in your comments in the comment section. I bet we will talk about the royal funeral maybe on Monday. It might be one of the stories we'll be talking about. We'll see. It's been a busy news week. But thanks again for joining us here on Facebook and YouTube Live, and we will see you after the weekend. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day.
Bye.